So I received this comment on a YouTube video that I recently made, and I kind of thought, yeah, I should probably make a YouTube video about this. So in this video, I'll go over the advantages versus the disadvantages of having a niche store and a general store. Let's get into it. So first off, what is a niche store? Well, a niche store in this example is basically a store that only focuses on one product category. This could, for instance, be mugs. This could be only posters. This could only be t-shirts. This could only be sweatshirts, but basically just one product category for the whole shop. You can actually niche further by just offering specific niches within that product category. An example of that would be, for instance, only offering nurse items within the product category, or only offering designs in regards to sports, or for instance, only offering items regarding to Christmas in just one store within one product category. But for this example in this video, I'll only talk about having one specific product category within a niche store. First off, the advantages of having a niche store. Well, the advantages of having a niche store is that if we just start on Etsy with a fresh shop, no one really knows what your store is about. So there's this unknown thing, which is the store on Etsy. And I really like Alex Hormozzi's definition of a brand. It's the most clear definition of a brand that I know. Every other type of branding definition has always been super elusive, but this one is actually clear. There's this unknown thing on Etsy, which is a store. Let's say that this specific store is called like 1234. Then they start selling only funny mugs for dads. So then people know that there exists funny mugs for dads, and then they associate this known thing with this unknown thing. So the branding in and of itself is just combining those two, taking one thing that's known, combining it with one thing that's unknown. That's branding in and of itself. The great part about this is that whenever they think of the known thing, which would be funny mugs for dads, they would be like, oh, there's this really good Etsy store that sells funny mugs for dads. That's basically the advantage of having a niche store, in my opinion, that there can be a clear definition of brand and what they are actually selling and focusing on. It just makes it easy for someone to know what to associate with your store. The main disadvantage that I see here is that we're kind of constrained now by having just one product category within our store. And the thing is that when we need to expand further, if we want to try out different things as we grow on Etsy, as I've grown my journey, I've always wanted to test and try new stuff, just to test the waters a bit. In that case, we would basically need to make a new store, and that comes with a lot of detriments. Since we now have to make a whole new store for a new product category, if we want to go into that, we have to then build reviews for that store as well. And I'll go more into that later in the video. But another thing that's also important to know is that if we have several stores then that we then use for different product categories, messages can be a real hassle to actually take care of, because maybe you get one message in one store and one in another, and just flipping between those instead of having everything in one inbox. Just a lot more administrative work, since these kind of messages with customers needs to be answered within 24 hours. In order for us to keep our star seller badges, we have to use that. And I like to just keep that time limit myself, as that's just good customer service. But another thing that's also really to overlook with this is that when we have a separate store, that also means that it's double the administrative work with bookkeeping and accounting. Since it's a whole separate store, it'll be a whole other CSV file to account for each month basically. So it just means a lot more accounting and bookkeeping work. Now let's get into the general store. So what is a general store? A general store is just a store that sells many different types of products. So they can basically sell phone cases, posters, just a bunch of different product types within one and the same store. And within the store itself, they can obviously then sell in many different niches itself. So they might sell funny dice for mugs. They also might sell funny mugs for women. They might also sell basketball shirts, for instance. Just different types of things within the store. The advantages of having a general store is that everything is just one in the same place, and it's everything just so much easier to manage. And one of the biggest things, in my opinion, when it comes to having a general store, and the biggest perk that we get of having just a general store, is that we're able to actually leverage the social proof that we already have on other product types in our store for a new product category. So when people view Etsy, they actually see both the reviews for the shop and the reviews for the listing. If there are no reviews for the specific listing, they just include reviews for other listings in your store within the new listing that doesn't have any reviews. So being able to leverage previous reviews from other product categories as we venture into new product categories is huge, as reviews is one of the main levers to actually gain momentum for our whole shop. Another thing is that it's easier to just do the administrative work, of course, because we have everything in one place. So if we do the accounting and the bookkeeping, everything is just in one CSV file. And when we need to refer to anything that happened during the month, we can just have that single CSV file and use that for our accounting. Not having two and not having to go back and forth between two shops, just having everything in one place. And apart from that, it's also what I mentioned before regarding messages, just having everything in one simple inbox. It makes it just easier to manage messages as they come by during the day. Now, the disadvantages to having a general store is the inverse of the thing that I mentioned at the beginning, and that is that it's harder for someone to associate something that's known with your Etsy store. So it's basically just harder to get a solid brand for our Etsy store. So if we sell a lot of different things, a lot of different products, no one really knows what the store is specifically about. If we would venture into, for instance, do a Shopify store later on, it could be harder for someone to actually know, like, okay, we go here to get this specific item. If they want to hit your specific website, your specific Shopify store, they won't really have a strong association with what that specific store is about, since we have ours in so many different types of niches. So that's a disadvantage of having just a general store, I'd say. Now, there are some overarching things that I think is really important to know here, and that's actually that when someone actually buys from our shops, whether it's me, whether it's from you, whether it's from anyone on Etsy, I've almost always just heard that someone says, I bought this from Etsy, I bought this off of Etsy, never a specific shop on Etsy. So we're actually kind of covered under the Etsy brand when we are selling on Etsy. So overall, when we have our shops on a marketplace like Etsy, I'd still think that even if we try to niche our store as much as we can, people will still just take it as, oh, I bought this from Etsy. In my experience, at least, I've never really known that people are just referring to a specific shop when they are actually purchasing on Etsy. They're just always just referring to Etsy itself that holds everything on the marketplace. Since we're kind of under their whole brand, the Etsy brand itself, niching itself is not something that I do. That's also why I've gone the general store route myself. And that's because when people actually are like consuming Etsy from a consumer standpoint, they're actually just searching something that they want on the page, and everything that shows up in the first page is usually something that they can purchase. The whole sale process is just people are just searching for something on Etsy. Then they see, I think it's around 40 or something different listings for the first page. They click something on that first page most of the time. They usually don't go further than that, maybe sometimes do, but most of the sales happens on the first page. Then when they're in the listing, they usually just press add to cart if they want it, and then they hit the checkout, and then it's done. In none of these instances are they just thinking, oh, I bought from this specific shop or this specific shop. They're just purchasing the item off of Etsy. The sale actually happens on a listing level most of the time. At least in my experience, it's been like that. Niching our store is not something that I'd recommend doing, since everything is just happening on specific listings itself. In my experience, there's not been many people that actually have viewed my shop and been like, okay, I want this specific thing and this specific thing. It all happens in search on the first page. They click that thing on the first page, and then they're clicking add to cart, and then they're checking that item out at checkout. That's the whole process, in my opinion. But the main thing that I really take away as an overarching thing about this is that when we want to enter a new product category, or we want to test out some new things within our stuff just to grow our store, then we can just leverage the reviews. And the reviews, in all due honesty, is worth their weight in gold. Getting the first 10 sales was definitely the hardest. Getting the first 100 sales were a bit easier than the first 10 sales. And then getting the first 1,000 sales were definitely easier than the first 10 and 100. And it just kept on going like this. In my opinion, having like the first 1,000 sales is always like the bracket. If we can just get past that, it always gets a lot easier. At least that's been my experience. And I think a big part of that is having a lot of reviews. That's social proof in the store, where there's lots and lots of positive 5-star reviews where people tell us about their experience as a new consumer on the store wanting to purchase a specific thing. That makes the perceived likelihood of achievement of they actually getting what they want so much higher. So the reviews that we get from other product categories that we can then leverage into new product categories is just tremendously huge and beneficial, so we can actually expand the whole store. I do just want to make an emphasis that the reviews are worth their weight in gold, since the reviews of the whole shop is actually seen on new products that we're just listing on Etsy, because if a listing doesn't have specific reviews for that specific listing, the reviews for the shop itself will show instead. If there's like 1 or 2 reviews, they will fill out the rest of the reviews, so it looks like there's lots of reviews for the shop. In my opinion, it's just so valuable to just keep everything in the store, being able to leverage that as we try new things and grow with our store. Alright, so this whole video came about as someone commented on a previous video that I made. If you like the video, please hit that like button and subscribe, as that helps out a lot with growing the channel. And if there's anything specific that you want me to cover next, just drop a comment down below and I'll do my best to help out. I'll see you in the next one.